Begins at 40. Our guest today is Aparna Vedapuri. She's the founder and CEO of the largest digital platform for women called Women's Web. Women's Web has a readership of over 7 million people, and it is also a platform that has given voice to over 10,000 women. The platform also works at offering women freelance writing opportunities and also connecting corporates that want to reach out to the urban women. Very happy to have Aparna Vedapuri on Life Begins at 40. Thank you. So welcome to Life Begins at 40, Aparna.
Thanks for having me, Sanjana.
So a journalist and a postgrad from MICA. You worked and then became an entrepreneur in 2010. So tell us a little about your journey.
Right. So I actually should clarify that I studied to be a journalist, but I actually didn't go into the field because, the year I graduated, jobs were terrible. So I decided to study further and, went on to do my master's in communication at MICA. And I went into the corporate sector, and the first decade of my work experience was largely in market research, product management, and then I was working as a business development manager in consulting. Then I worked for some time as a communications consultant. So I was in the corporate sector, but I think, in whatever role I was doing, I always wanted to have something around the communication space, even though I couldn't per se go into the media space. And then, of course, the first wave of blogging took off in India in the 2000s, and I was part of that. And I saw the rich and diverse kind of conversation that was happening with women bloggers all around me, and that in turn led to my starting Women's Web. So that's like a quick snapshot of my journey.
Tell us a little about Women's Web. What is it all about? The kind of women it has given a voice to, and the freelance writers that are associated with it.
Sure. So, very simply put, Women's Web is a digital media platform that's all about enabling women to tell their own stories. So, which means their experiences, their lives, their ideas, their opinions. And we firmly believe that, every woman's story has the power to really support and inspire another woman. So, that support could be practical in terms of sharing some know-how or ideas. That support could just be emotional, psychological, in terms of helping another woman understand that whatever she's going through, she's not alone. There are others like her. So that's the core of what we do, enabling women to share the good, bad, and ugly of their own lives. And to date, we've had over 10,000 women share their own stories. So we have 10K plus contributors on the platform today, writing in English, Hindi, and this year in Tamil as well, and soon in other languages. And of course, millions of readers who are, inspired by and relate to these stories.
Would you like to share some transformative stories that you have seen in the past few months since COVID has affected our lives?
Okay. One COVID specific story and maybe some which are, a little more over time.
Yeah.
So one thing is that, when COVID began, one of the things that we did notice is that a lot of campaigns had begun to support migrant workers, to support people in distress, somehow did not seem to take into account women's needs. So one of the things that, we did together as a community was that we started a fundraising effort along with Plan India, a non-profit organization. And we actually mobilized the community to help them put together care packs for, women-led families that included certain essentials like, for instance, sanitary napkins and, other period supplies. So that's one example of, not necessarily a story, but an example of, how the community can come together to mobilize. Although we're not a non-profit organization per se, our core remains in storytelling. But yes, the community does come together around cases like these. And other than that, of course, stories are very, very powerful. Like, I'll just give you an example. A few days ago, I was talking to somebody, one of our regular contributors, and she was, but not somebody, whom I knew personally. And then we got talking around something. And she was sharing with me around how she's recently been able to leave an abusive marriage, and she's actually in the middle of now fighting the court case for divorce and maintenance and so on. And one of the things that she told me was that hearing the narratives of other women who've gone through abusive marriages, who've been able to leave, who handled their divorces, and now on the other side of that experience, hearing those stories, how it actually gave her the courage to make that decision. Especially when we live in a society that keeps telling you that, adjust, it's okay, things will get better if you just compromise a little more. So when all the voices around you are, telling you this, you need those other stories which really tell you that a woman like you can do this and you can walk out and you'll be okay. That it's not going to be easy, but you'll be okay. So yeah, we hear stories like that all the time from our readers.
So you're helping create a community which strengthens, empowers women and gives them hope and brings them together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are the values that drive your organization? What is the culture of the organization? And how many employees do you have currently?
So we're a core 10-member team. Besides which we have people working with us for tech support and finance support. And of course, our larger team is really the contributors who power this engine, who are really the storytellers who inspire and support each other. So like I said, that's 10K plus women. We also periodically work with journalists and freelance writers where there is a need to, let's say, cover an ongoing court case which has ramifications for women, or interview inspirational people in the field whose stories need to be shared with more people. So we also periodically commission work from freelance writers. So our values are really, the core of our values are that women have their own power to be there and support and inspire each other, and we are only an enabler in that process. So in that sense, we are not ourselves involved in recruitment or direct job opportunities. But yes, we do enable opportunities for women in a number of ways. So one of the things we do, for instance, is we work with enterprises often to create similar content or curate experiences for them. And when those opportunities come up, we roll them out to the community. So just to give you an example, we are currently creating a lot of interesting content for a technology major whom I can't name. But now, how does this content get created, right? Who are the people who actually are on the platform? They are people of all kinds, right? They are homemakers, bankers, technologists. Now, some of them may not be at work currently. Like, as you would know, a lot of women, cannot really go into the paid workplace, or they have to drop out of the workplace due to motherhood or other reasons, and they're unable to go back, or they're taking a break for some time. Now, we often work with women from such profiles in order to create content and experiences for enterprises. So that's one example of how we provide opportunities to the community. So coming back to our values, our very first value is women supporting other women. So we firmly believe that every woman has the capacity to inspire and support another woman in whatever form she is able to. So that's number one for us. Number two is that we are a supportive space for women, which means that we do not, condemn or judge women's choices. So if you see the content on Women's Web, often you will find that there are differing perspectives even on the same issue. This doesn't mean that we never examine any choices, but we must do it in a respectful way. So we don't believe in, condemning women, because we do believe that sometimes women take choices which may not, you may not agree with it, but she's probably doing that because of her circumstances and the situation that she comes from. So how can we be more understanding and respectful of those choices? And of course, as an employer, we are very committed to building a workplace that is respectful of people's lives as people and not just as automated workers. So which means we are very keen that people should have a good work-life balance, should have flexibility to create, work schedules that work for them, while keeping in mind, of course, the business needs and deliverables. We don't lose sight of that. So that's, as an employer, that's very critical for me.
Wonderful. So this brings me to my next question. That being an entrepreneur, I'm sure, is not the easiest thing to do in the world.
Yes.
And especially now that you have such a large community of women, how did you think of all this besides becoming an entrepreneur and then kind of starting all of this after having worked?
So, a lot of things in my life have been incremental. I should be very honest and say that it's not that I had the vision of where we are today. It's been built one step at a time. I became an entrepreneur simply because I felt that, existing women's platforms were very narrowly defined. So I thought that, there is scope for a platform in the market which is more holistic and which enables women to share the entirety of their lives. So that's honestly the only thing I had in mind. I didn't really have a very clear picture of where they should go, how large it should be, how will it make money. I didn't have a very clear picture, to be very honest. I've taken one step at a time and we built the community first. Then we started working with brands and enterprises. Then that part of the business grew. Then we added events into the mix because we saw that, while people loved the virtual, they also wanted to meet one another. Then brands also wanted to be part of those events. Then, enterprises came to us and said, you're producing wonderful content and experiences for your community. Why don't you do it for us? So honestly, it's, one thing has led to another. What we've probably been on the lookout for is, how can we grab those opportunities? So maybe certain things which you didn't think of at the outset, but, when they come your way, are you ready to ride on them? We've tried our best to do that.
Wonderful. And what has kept you motivated through this all? As you said, you didn't have a roadmap, so one step at a time.
I do.
Yes?
I think I fundamentally enjoy what I'm doing. So I am a storyteller and I love stories. So I love telling stories and I love listening to stories. So I still love what we do. The fundamentals of what we do that deeply interests me. That is number one. Number two is that, of course, the feedback that we get from our community, right? And it's not always positive. Of course, there are days when we have to hear a lot of critical feedback. But I would say on the whole, the positive overweighs the negative by a huge amount. And the feeling that we are able to impact women's lives in a very real way. I mean, you may not think of storytelling in the same way as you think of handing out supplies, for instance, but I truly believe that stories have the power to inspire us. And just as the body needs food, in a way the soul needs stories. And as women, we often need to know that there are other women with us. So those stories that we hear from women saying that, how did you tell my story? Or, oh my God, this is the exact same thing that happened to me. And that need not be around something very serious or, something very tragic. That can even be around something funny, right? So hearing that from our community really keeps us all going. And I know, this is true for many team members, not just for me.
Yeah. So would you like to quickly share two instances? One that brought you the most joy in these years and one that gave you the most harrowing, anxious time.
Okay. I think joy is, all of these instances, like I said, like when this lady recently told me, for instance, right, that she got the courage to walk out of an abusive marriage. Or I think 2 years ago during one of our events, somebody came up to me and said, so I'll give you an example. We run this event called Breaking Barriers, which is a 9-city event for women-owned businesses. So, and every year we do a showcase at that event where about 10 women entrepreneurs come and get to showcase their products. So last year at Bangalore, when we were doing this event, one lady just walked up to me and said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "I'm sorry, no, because unfortunately we meet a lot of people at events and it's sometimes hard for me to remember." And she said, "Last year at your Breaking Barriers in Hyderabad, I was an audience member and I told myself at the next event, my business is going to be ready and I'm going to showcase." Wow. And she had come there and she had nailed it, So that was such a joy to hear that, somebody had come to an event, been inspired by other entrepreneur stories, had gone back saying, next year, I'm going to be up front there showcasing my product, right? So that was like a real moment of joy for me to hear. So that's probably one example, and there are many like that. In terms of a harrowing time, I I don't want to, take a specific incident, but yes, I mean, there are times when we cover controversial issues, when we get trolled, when, sometimes either you get trolled or people haven't really read what the article covers, they've just seen the headline and the introduction, and they think that it refers to something. And, because this is the internet and we often forget that there are real people, sitting on the other side producing those stories, we feel okay to say anything and everything. So yeah, that can get harrowing at times. And it happens every once in a while.
Your hobby outside of Women's Web?
Reading.
Okay. So I believe that you're a voracious reader.
Yes.
What is the latest book you've read?
So one book I read recently, which I love and which I really think everybody should read, is In the Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. It is a non-fiction that really records the great migration that happened within America from the south to the north, all through from the 1880s to the 1960s. And it really tells the story of a people, who were driven out of the American South, the American segregated South, into a land where they wanted to find freedom. It's an incredible read.
What are the 5 must-reads as per you?
So I'm just going to name some of my favorites, which I love. I mean,
right.
And I love a lot of books, so this list keeps changing. But yeah, some of my absolute favorites are Margaret Atwood's Mad Adam trilogy, and I'm going to cheat a little bit, so it's a trilogy. I'm going to give that as one choice. Then another one of my personal favorites is Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. Then another book which I think is a must-read for fans of speculative fiction is Vandana Singh's The Woman Who Thought She Was a Planet. It's a very fun, at the same time, deeply thought-provoking read. Then I would suggest, one of the other reads that I would suggest is Karukku by Bama. Bama is a Dalit Tamil writer, and Karukku is her autobiographical novel written in Tamil, but the translation is available in English as well. Again, I think a lot more people need to read that. So there you go, I have 4. Number 5, which is something that I keep coming back to, is Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, a little bit of an old-fashioned choice. But I think any aspiring writer definitely needs to read this one, simply for the way Austen brings alive a very small world. So it's a very small and limited world, but she brings it alive impeccably.
Beautiful. So thank you for that. What makes Aparna complete? Does she exercise or does she just work? And what
I have to exercise. So I have to say, I'm not a major gym person. I'm essentially a walker and I do yoga. These are my 2 preferred forms of exercise.
Wonderful. So movies or TV shows?
TV shows, I think. Increasingly don't have the patience for movies.
And what's your favorite TV show these days?
Really good one that I've seen recently is The Babysitter's Club. Very fun after a long day of work. Very fun, very feminist too.
Okay. So that's a good recommendation for me too. Also, if Aparna was to write a biography, what would she call it?
I think I would call it This Too Will Pass.
Profound.
Because, I mean, that's one of my learnings as an entrepreneur, and just as someone who's lived life for 40 years, I think it's one of my learnings that life can be wonderful and life can also be deeply unfair, where bad things happen to good people. But yes, this too will pass, and sometimes one just needs courage and a lot of patience.
Yes, and what keeps Aparna young?
I think what keeps me young young at heart, is just learning something every day. I love learning new things. Part of the reason I love reading. Yeah, if I had to, think of myself 5 years down the line, I guess I just see myself as somebody who continues to, work with storytelling and enabling people to tell their own stories. It could be in newer forms, so work wise, for instance, we used to primarily tell stories in text, and today we do a lot of videos. So how we tell those stories may keep changing, but I believe that I will continue working with women, and I will.
How do you define success?
I think I define success as, achieving whatever goals you've set out for yourself. And I really believe that it's okay to set very different goals. Everybody's goals need not be the same. I'm very lucky that I've never felt the inclination to chase other people's goals. I don't see that as a credit to myself. I think it's just the way I am, and I truly believe I'm lucky to be that way, that I don't feel the need to compare myself to, anybody else's goals. But yes, I have my own goals to chase, and I believe that I'm, truly successful when I've achieved those.
So, lastly, what would be the few tips that you would like to leave for women who are looking at becoming entrepreneurs?
So 2 tips, coming from maybe something that I've done right and something that I've not. So one of the things I always feel I could have done better is started out with a clearer business plan. And by that, I don't mean a Harvard template business plan or something like that. It doesn't need to be the best B schools, but having clarity in terms of how you're funding your business, what does it cost to run your business, including your own time, and how long it will take you to recover that money and make a profit. And so having some more clarity on that at the outset, that's number one. Number 2, which I think is a tip that I can give from something I've learned and which has really helped me, and which I think I've done well, is if you have a big decision to take, sleep on it. Don't take it, especially when you're feeling under a lot of stress or you're having a bad day, because often the moment when you're under a lot of pressure is exactly when you'll feel tempted to take a big decision to solve that problem. It's okay. In most cases, unless it's a matter of life and death, you can afford to sleep on it and take that decision the next morning when you feel rested, you've had a good night of sleep, and with a calm mind, you can evaluate what you need to do. So that's
on that note, thank you so much, Aparna, for your time. It's been.
Thank you, Sanjana.